Just a quick introduction now, guys, into stances, all right? This is a very important part of your martial arts. And I want to just do a quick little talk to you, or give a little talk to you right now as we get into learning about stances, because it's probably the one area of the martial arts that is the most important, but at the same time, most neglected by students. Okay, they just don't practice them anywhere near enough or think about them anywhere near enough, and probably for very good reason, all right? By stances, we're simply talking about how your feet are placed on the floor. There's various stances in the martial arts. Certainly in the Kempo system, we have various stances that we use, positioning our feet so that we can do the various moves that we need to perform. All right. Stances are a kind of basic, okay, just like punches are a kind of a basic, a block is a kind of a basic, a kick is a kind of a basic, various sorts of strikes are basics. A stance is also a basic, as is what we would call a foot maneuver, which is how we move between stances, all right? And they're the most basic, fundamental of basics, if you like, the most basic basics, in this sort of way. When you learn how to read, certainly when you read in English, you will know that there are 5 letters of the alphabet that turn up in just about every single word that you ever make, okay? And listening to me right now, you probably know what those 5 letters are, okay? The vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. Now, stances are like the vowels of your martial arts alphabet, okay? No matter what else you are doing, you are going to be using a stance, okay? It doesn't matter if you're throwing a punch. It doesn't matter if you're making some kind of other kind of strike, like an elbow strike or a hammer strike or a spear hand strike, okay? Or a dragon fist strike, okay? Or any of that other kind of clever stuff. Or if you're throwing a kick or a block or whatever, you are always going to have your feet on the ground, right? That is always going to be there. And so your stance is something that happens every single thing that you do, pretty much, okay? So therefore, your stances are something that you have to get right because you're always going to be doing them. So you have to make sure that when we are talking about stances and we're teaching you about stances and putting things together with stances, that you don't just focus on what your hands are doing and totally forget about what your legs are doing unless you're throwing a kick, all right? Having the correct stance, moving your body, turning your body, and what have you, it is the way that you generate power, while at the same time keeping your balance, all right? You can't create power without balance. You can't move properly without balance, all right? So make sure that your stances are very much in your mind while you're practicing. I think it would be fair to say that the main reason that students don't practice their stances or pay much attention to them is because they kind of find them boring, okay? I do understand that. They aren't the most flash or impressive part of your martial arts, you know, compared to a big jumping spinning kick or whatever. A stance just seems like really boring. And yeah, okay, it is boring. But it's the most boring basic things that are actually the most important, all right? That's what actually holds everything together, all right? It's the stuff that actually holds you there, okay? I've often said that your tires on your car are probably the most boring part of your car, all right? It's not the paint job. It's not the stereo. It's not the onboard computer. It's not all that clever stuff. It's pretty boring, the tires. But the tires, let's face it, is the only thing that part of your car that's actually in contact with the rest of the planet, okay? So if they're not working right, the car's not much use. You can have the most powerful flash motor car in the world. If it doesn't have any tires on it, or the tires are bald or breaking, you know, falling apart, you're not going to be able to do very well. So as we go through stances and talk about stances, make sure that you practice getting them right. Okay, it's very, very important. Quick general note about stances is that you have to make sure that all of your stances fit the size of your own body. All right. In Kempo Karate, we make sure that your stances are based on what we call a knee to heel width. Okay. Basically, your stances need to be just like if I'm in a horse stance or a neutral stance. We'll go over all these in individual lessons. Okay. I don't want them too narrow, my feet too close together, because then I'm wobbly. Okay. I don't want my feet too far apart and down too low either, because although I'm stable and I've got good balance in that position, I can't move very, very well. All right. Some traditional martial arts, you notice, they didn't have very long, low, deep stances. Okay. They do that for their own reasons, which I'm not here to comment on or criticize. For us in Kempo, we want you to be able to move, to be able to, get around there effectively, to be quick and to be agile, but at the same time have a real stable base to attack from. And so that medium-sized stance is just right, okay? As far apart as your knee is from your foot if you go down on one knee. Like I said, we'll break that down a bit more in each individual video on stances, but just keep it in mind as an overall principle right now. You don't want your stances to be too wide because you can't move, but nor do you want your stances to be too narrow because then you can't maintain your balance. If you can't keep your balance, you can't generate any power. So just keep that basic idea in mind for now.